This is the Assembly Rules Committee meeting. Let's go around the table and identify ourselves for the record.
Jennifer Johnston.
Dick Trainey.
Elvie Gray Jackson. Reed Dennis.
Oh, Bob Churchill?
Carolyn Ramsey, please. Amanda Moser, clerk's office.
Dennis, identify yourself.
Dennis Wheeler, Municipal Attorney.
Thank you. That takes care of the first two items. The next one is review of Citizens Task Force recommendations. Do you want to join with us in this since you're here? Carolyn, do you guys want to go over this with us or what?
We're here sort of on our own, but I wouldn't mind participating at all
If you
if
would,
we
please.
could be helpful.
Because what we've got on the agenda is review of the Citizens Task Force recommendations. So if you want to, just go ahead and go through these.
Go through the working document that we
Yeah,
submitted?
if you would.
Okay. The committee was formed with Jane Anvig as our chair, and our mission, as we understood it, was to review the public process and do what we could to gather information from the public as well as our own expertise and see how we might make this process a little more fluid and more inclusive. And given that, we came up with some core recommendations, and from those recommendations, the rest of the document flows. But the primary recommendations was the purpose of the public hearing process is to solicit views, knowledge, and ideas of community members to help shape government action. And I think that's pretty well established in the charter. This is not new, folks. The process should be open, accessible, predictable, inclusive, transparent, and practicable. And a lot of the public testimony, as you know, we had 2 public testimony sessions, and accessibility and predictability and inclusiveness was huge with the public. They came forward and said that those were important for a number of reasons. Without the predictability, they just didn't feel that their opportunity to, in fact, participate was real. When community members share the information and values with elected officials, public policy is enhanced. And that both as a committee and testimony, we just felt the more input from the end user, the people most responsible and most involved with an issue, enhances the process before it gets in the assembly chamber. Work sessions, scoping, those sorts of events give a much more final product. And we felt, and I think it's a realistic evaluation, was the fact that it would probably save time in the long run. Instead of having huge numbers of people show up to testify, the user groups that were in fact most deeply involved would have had their input, they would be knowledgeable about the product and what was in front of the assembly. Discussion of controversial issues with the public in public forum prior. This is again the same thing I talked about earlier. Traditional electronic methods of communications should be explored. This hit a number of areas for us. Everything from the ADA, the American Disabilities Act, to just being much more inclusive for people with incredibly busy schedules. We felt that we could explore means of providing testimony, either handwritten, electronically, and create a public record with that. We felt we'd both enhance the process for the individual assembly members as well as the public at large. We found out the public repeatedly said, well, I couldn't be there for the testimony, or I couldn't review this, or couldn't review that, and I felt that I missed out because of it. And they weren't casting stones, they were just saying, they just feel they could be a better citizen and better involved with the process. They had the benefit of that broad scope thinking. Mutual respect should guide the conduct of members of the public as well as elected officials in public hearings. Absolutely important. One of the things that I thought this was very interesting, we had a young man testify, and he said when his parents came to the assembly, they were intended, the physical setup, they weren't being critical of any one assembly member, and at the end he said, and they're both trial attorneys. I went, whoa, so it was, I've noticed that some members are particularly good at helping people or making comment after testimony or making them feel welcome.
Go ahead, Jennifer. Then LB, I'm sorry.
I just, with that, and that is a real problem, just the dais and everything, and we all know about that, but there's something I've always wondered for the public and for the assembly, with that making people feel comfortable. You know, the saying thank you, the you did a great job, whatever, and there's 11 of us sitting up there, and if we all do that, and that takes a minute or 2 minutes, is that really being respectful to the public too? I mean, I've been there's times I want to, but I almost wonder if the chair is a good chair and the chair sort of can convey for all of us our appreciation.
I've covered this issue on a number of committees, and the way I've seen it resolved, it seems to work actually pretty well, is that can be sort of handed around. I mean, normally, I've chaired a number of committees that take a lot of public testimony. I always try to do that as a chair. I could see it being done by the vice chair, one of the members, so that you don't have this, I agree with you. If you have this chorus of 11 people standing and applaud. But on the other hand, with the process, as that person is leaving, it's not really adding time. It's they finish their testimony and they're saying thank you and they're leaving, the next person's coming up. But yeah, so that's, yeah, we sort of chewed on that a bit too. That we felt it could be done, and I think there's sometimes a relationship where some of the assembly members who are very involved in their community councils know the testifier really well, and you get a very personal sort of thing. And I think that speaks really well both for the community council and the assembly. It doesn't hurt anybody when those things occur. Did that answer?
Yeah, it's just been a concern of mine for a long
Yeah.
time, because I tend to say thank you to people
And it's
through
appreciated.
my life.
Yeah.
But this time I feel it's an
Yeah.
imposition.
We just have to make the people understand that it's the public's arena we're in. Sometimes, I remember when I first came to the assembly, and it was like, my knees were shaking, what do I say to these people in the 3 minutes you've got? And those 3 minutes burn up like nothing. And after we've been on it for a while, we tend to forget it. Elvie's got a question. I want to go to Amanda. Elvie?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You're doing a really fine job giving us an overview, but I have a suggestion.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, because we had a work session with the task force, and you went over all the recommendations. And I'm sure that we're gonna have another rules committee meeting. But what I would recommend we do, Mr. Chairman, okay, is go over each suggestion and
Okay.
decide what we can codify and what we can make policy.
That's the reason I want to go to Amanda. and we can
Yeah.
do exactly that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Amanda, from the clerk's office, what of these, have you guys looked at these from a clerk's perspective? What can we implement now to make this a reality?
Thank you. There is a lot of stuff that the clerk's office is working on implementing, because I would say the majority of this stuff is just procedural and policy changes. It just requires additional stuff on our end. So I'm gonna jump down to section 2 on page 3. So the first section talks about charter, but section 2, for example, the first item in the public notice of the agenda of an assembly meeting, the title of each ordinance or resolution should accompany the number of the ordinance and resolution. So this is an issue that occurs on our municipal website. We notice all of our documents on the municipal website. We no longer notice in the newspaper. This is something that the clerk's office has reviewed. We've heard a lot of feedback on it. And Dennis and I had a conversation about this last week, and I have a meeting tomorrow with the municipal web master. And I have an idea on how I think this can work, and I just need to logistically find out. And I think a lot of these things are really good ideas, but it's just implementing them. So we are, I guess my idea is, currently we list the public notices on a public notice page. And so I asked the question if there could be, instead of having our assembly public notices with every other municipal public notice, if we could have a separate assembly public notice webpage, and we could have a slightly different format on that page, and instead of, so currently the language reads, public notice for AR blah blah blah. And ideally what I would like to switch it to would be, the page would be organized by assembly meeting. So you would go and you would look at November 19th and you would see all the items that are listed for public notice. And it would be listed by the whole title, not just the AR number.
You mean for public hearing?
Yes.
Okay.
So the public notice that we provide for the public hearing items. Currently, the process in the clerk's office is we notice them on the public notice page, and then we go to a separate calendar page and we notice them there. So there's problems in that, in the sense that the clerk's office is doing two things, two separate actions, noticing two separate places, and both places are kind of a awkward roundabout way to get the notice, and they don't provide the public. So if you're looking for an item, a public hearing on, you know, a liquor license, and you don't know the AR number, you have to open up every single item to get that. I mean, it is a huge issue. So I will have more information on that one.
Just to follow up, it would be nice to set up so that if you know a particular meeting date, you can scroll through and find your item. If you know the number, the AR, the AO, you can search that and find it that way. Or if you just know the topic, taxis, type in taxis, you're gonna find it. So the idea is to set it up so the clerk's office puts it in once, but you can find it multiple different ways.
And we are working on attaching the documents currently. So that's another issue too, is on both the public notice site and the calendar where we're posting the notice, we are just putting the title, and then in order to get the document, it directs you to contact the clerk's office. But we are trying to make the documents available, but it just requires a whole other step of uploading this document to the website and linking it to this notice. So it is creating additional work for our office, but it is something that we are working on.
Amanda, could I ask you a question? Could you
Yes.
come back to us on the 12th at 1 o'clock for another Rules Committee meeting? Let us know what progress you've made towards making that happen. That gives you a month. I'd just like to
December
chart the
12th?
progress. The 12th is a Thursday at 1 PM, I think,
Of December,
of December.
and you wanna have a rules committee then?
Yes.
Okay.
What I'd
In
like
this
to
room?
do is go through,
In this room?
in this room. What I'd like to do, Amanda, is you're gonna keep going on things. But
Yeah.
I'd like to get a response back to us on each one of these so we can track what action you've done and what's been successful.
Okay, and so number 2 is in the same vein of the website and more user-friendly. I mean, the website is a whole big thing, and we access a small page of it. We have been, over the last few weeks, working on revising the assembly and the clerk's office web pages to make them more easy to navigate and user-friendly. It is just an ongoing process that we are continuing to work on. And then as far as the whole municipal website, I'm not sure how to approach addressing the whole municipal website. I know that the clerk's office, we can work to make our pages more accessible.
Go ahead, Ben.
And with the assembly page, one of the problems I have with the whole website is just the query, doing a search, where you have IT help as far as, because when I do a search on the website, of course, it could be me and my logic, and that's why I have trouble.
Yeah.
But I just was wanting
Okay.
to try that out.
And so in that same vein, Lisa and I in the clerk's office are meeting bi-weekly with the webmaster, and we're reviewing the webpage issues, and she's helping us in our process of updating the website. So any questions or concerns regarding the website, it's really easy for us to just circle back with the webmaster and have those answered.
And
Elvis?
and if I might,
Good, Bob.
one of the issues we had with this was a better search engine within the website, where one of the issues that came
That's
up
what Jennifer was
with
saying.
noise permits,
Yeah.
Yeah.
with concerns about noise, and it was just very difficult for the people to
Yeah,
find, so.
that was-
Elby?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And, we're really talking about two different things. And I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong, committee members, task force members, but the municipal website in its whole is not our concern.
And that's
right,
what I'm
for this
saying,
At all.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a whole nother
Absolutely.
issue. Yeah, the assembly website, okay, is what our concern is. So you don't have to worry about the website.
Okay,
Yeah.
and that's what I'm trying to say, that we are addressing the assembly website,
Right.
but the municipal website is, I mean, if we wanna change that, that is a huge.
That wasn't in our scope.
Right, I didn't think it was.
No.
The process, okay, so item C, the process of assembly meetings and rules for public hearings should appear at the top of the agenda. We talked about this a lot in the task force. I think it's the planning and zoning has the rules listed. The clerk's office can work on compiling some suggested rules and bring them to the committee for your approval, and then we can add those to the agendas.
Well, thank you for doing that.
Okay.
Amanda. Thank you.
So, and that will be something that we will probably present at the meeting in December then, if that is okay with you.
That'd be fun.
A municipal kiosk should provide the public with free access to the municipal website in the lobby of the assembly chambers. This, I think, would just be something that if the task force is interested in, we just need to add it to the budget.
Let us know how much money, and we'll
Okay.
try and add it, because that was one of my recommendations I brought to your committee, was this kiosk. I really want to make sure this happens, because I see people walk in outside where we're at, and they're lost. I think a kiosk could help them a lot of ways.
Well, some of us are lost in.
I would
So-
admit that, thank you.
Item E is having available addendum and laid on the table items at the assembly chambers. And this is something that the clerk's office has taken up with enthusiasm. We have provided some additional signage at the chambers regarding the documents. We are now posting the assembly agenda and the addendum. And then there's all sorts of signage that says if you need a document and it's not here, go see the minutes clerk. We got a new sign notating who the minutes clerk is. It's the person who sits next to the guard. And
Let me ask you a question. Are we gonna have a rule that blue folder items have to be to the clerk by, say, noon on the day of the assembly meeting? So you guys can have copies made and available for the public, and no more laid on the table items unless there's some emergency going on? Because we get pieces of paper, all of us do.
Yeah.
They're thrown on us and said, this is a laid on the table item, it'll be added to the agenda later. The public has no idea.
Well, and so that's, I don't know the answer to that. I do know that if we do not have the document before the meeting, we do not have the capability to upload it at the chambers. So this second part of this, that copies of these ordinances and resolutions must be available online and in the back of the assembly chambers. If we do not get them, before end of business day, then it is very challenging. I mean,
There may be something we as an assembly have to set a rule. Unless the world's coming to an end, they have to be in at a certain time, so the clerk's office can make copies, get them to the public. Because sometimes we're as bad as everybody else is. Stuff just shows up.
And usually what we do.
We're doing it.
What my office does with the clerk's office is we agree with, got something like this, on who's gonna bring the copies, and we've been trying to bring 25, 30 copies with us so that they can distribute them. And they use the copier in the back room to make more as needed.
Yeah, and I guess the only concern is making them available online, and so I think that might be a bigger conversation, because it is,
Jennifer?
The chair, I think, could set the policy rule that, knowing that there's times that people aren't gonna.
Sometimes,
Yeah.
but not a weekly
But they
process.
could, at least with the assembly, could say that,
One, I know
Because
the trick is how to upload them. One idea, and I haven't talked to you about this, but you've got the two IT guys there. What you could do is if that copier is not already prepared to do it, you could have a little desktop scanner. Scan them and post them, you could do that in a matter of a minute for most things.
well, and there is ways that we could get them out there, but for the municipal website, it only uploads items public facing at 17 after the hour. So if we get an item at like 5:17, then it's not gonna go live on the website until 6:17. And then, we're scrambling at the chambers to get them uploaded, and it doesn't put them into the meeting management system that we use unless if we do that back here at the office before the meeting. And so, I think that there is ways that we can get them out there to the public, but it is not, I think that if we want them uploaded with the agenda, on the meeting site available to the public, then we probably would need them by noon on an assembly meeting day.
Melvin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make one comment, and not necessarily anything to do with what you're talking about, but, and I'm not looking to make new laws, but I really want to see some of these recommendations become codified. And the reason why is because policies are great, but policies are only used as far as you want to use them. And it depends on who's in charge. The chair, you know, and things change. Assembly changes, members change, clerk's office staff changes, you know, and I just want to see some of these recommendations from the task force codified so that no matter who's in charge, you gotta follow the rules. So I just wanted to make that comment. And then one more comment, and we probably don't have time today, but I really want to follow up on Mr. Whaler's code of conduct draft too. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Matt. And Amanda, Elby and I are going down to National League of Cities meeting next week, as Jennifer is. And they're gonna have booths down there. There's a part of the meeting where all these vendors come in with their wares.
Yeah.
And a lot of them have this system electronically. So what I intend to do with Elby and Jennifer, let's go to every booth and see what they've got out there and how we can bring that back and give a curse off. Send it's up to you guys to coordinate it,
Yeah.
get a hold of it, see if it's worth doing.
And, you know, I have been doing some review on myself. I took part in a webinar this morning on transparent government and some of these different things that are available in order to provide the public with. So there is a lot of great stuff out there, so that's fantastic. I'm excited that you guys are gonna do that. Moving on to item F, this is just more discussion on the addendum and laid on the table items. Item G, Facebook and other forms of social media should be employed and provide public notice. We
And you're
have
doing it
been
now, aren't
working
you?
Very hard at that on the clerk's office. We, as of today, have 100 likes on our Facebook page, and we have about 51 likes on our Twitter. We are trying to do a variety of things that we post on there. I'm trying to post pictures at the assembly meetings just to give the public another idea of stuff that goes on. I posted pictures from Tuesday's meeting of the crowds that were there. There was large crowds for all the different items. And then also the Chugach Eagle River Chamber of Commerce received a resolution, so we posted that.
You did the picture of the one gentleman that got his award from us on
Yes.
Friday. I received a call from his therapist, and she so much appreciates that because it helped his sense of self-confidence
Yeah.
by doing that. And thanks for putting it out there on the website.
No, and so the clerk's office sees this as a way to show the work that the assembly members do at the meetings and throughout the week, and that's a perfect example of it. You know, last Friday we toured the hockey rinks, and I posted photos of that. And we're also using it as a way to update the public when the agenda is available online, when the agenda has been updated with the addendum items. We've been posting that information. We've been posting the Friday work session schedule, so that's just all. And so we're just trying to send out a mixture of sort of the fun stuff, the photos, and then also just the good hard agendas and stuff like that. So we are continuing to work on the social media. And like this, with all the other stuff, it just requires that sort of extra staff time that we put into these recommendations. Better signage at the entrance to the assembly chambers should notify community members about the location of the printed agenda and supporting documents. And I spoke about this a little bit earlier. We have added a lot of additional signs notating or referencing people where to go. We will continue to work on that. Public hearings. We had a robust conversation about a volunteer navigator program where either high school students or retirees could come and assist the public with accessing the chambers and the documents. We have not begun to look at this yet.
Did we change the word to guide from from Navigator. I'm sorry, given Obamacare, I'd really rather not use the word Navigator.
Yeah.
Jen?
The whole internship program, UAA, and it might be an interesting, I know up on the 8th floor they're using them, and that, the assembly, and I know sometimes mentorship and it takes time,
Yeah.
but this might be something that would take less time to pull in
Yeah.
into the clerk's
Carolyn?
office.
Andy Josephson, Andy, thank you, Hallman, said that there are specific teachers within the high school system, Stellar, et cetera, who do run government programs.
Yeah.
And what they'd like to do is bring them in for specific training so that they can run the thing and teach the kids and then run it from that area. So it gets the high school kids. Because I know Stellar has a program where they are required to serve so much time per semester working either on campaigns or in political arenas somehow. So this could help them fulfill that.
There's a number for the junior high and high school that we talked about. One is called the We the People program.
Yeah,
It's in a
I'm
number of
familiar with
junior
that.
highs and high schools. And the university is another one that would be useful.
And as I say, I do understand the time impact.
Yeah.
But if it's something like this, then maybe you're not the one, you're doing training once and then.
That was sort of our hope, is that the training only happens once, maybe it's a recurring once a year or something like that, but then demand is out of it because they don't have time.
Yeah. So, and I think that the clerk's office thinks it's a great idea, but just as far as implementation, it is.
Amanda, if you want from a clerk's office to figure out how to set this up, and you want the seminary members to come and talk to these people, I'm more than happy to do that. Because I'd like to get the high school counselors / teachers involved in this. And if it takes time, I've got time to do it.
Have you dealt with Pam Orm?
Who?
Pam Orm over at the school district?
don't know her.
I'll get us together
If you
because
would,
she
please.
would be ideal for this. She-
Barbara is actually friends with.
Yeah,
They
with
serve
Pam.
on a committee together.
Well,
Just letting you know from the
they do the
assembly,
Meet the People
more than happy to
program
help.
out west, and I was involved in that as well, Pam and Barb and myself, and she's in a position that would really lend itself to this, and I'll get you all
So
the
everyone want to get
contact
this
stuff.
done.
Yeah.
Elvie?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When we had the presentation with the Rules Committee from the task force, I wrote down what I thought should be codified, except I left that home. But, interesting enough, the next three, number C through probably E, should be codified and can be codified. Frankly, number C is already in the code. We just need to expand on it for the 5-minute time for designated representatives. Because that's already in the code, the 3 minutes. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that.
And where are you guys at with the community council part of that? Are you okay with the 5 for community council?
I think it's
A designation for
I
that?
have no
it's been done in the past, you know
Oh,
that.
no, I used to do it.
Right,
But it
right.
changed at some point in time.
And that's my
We
point
need to change it back to
exactly.
5 minutes. We only have
And we
38
need to
community
codify it so that it
councils.
doesn't change.
It's not the end of the world.
Ever.
Yeah.
Right.
But we're trying to make community councils more viable and feel as if they're more included in what we're doing. That's the reason we've gone through the community council ordinance. And I think this will help us invigorate community
absolutely.
councils. Every now and then needs a little shot of vitamins to get them working right. They're volunteers.
Yeah.
Well, and as you guys have said, and I know in dealing with the public, when I brought this up to them, they said, what's so special about community councils? When you say it's part of the charter and you explain it, it makes sense. Most of the people have gone, oh, well, okay, I get that. And I just think.
Our charter was just written so well to add community councils into it. And we really need to invigorate them, and I think giving them 5 minutes is not a big deal.
Yeah.
I know I would appreciate it.
So.
Except for Kathy. I think maybe with that one. You have to understand how, I enjoy teasing Kathy.
You've got to, or she doesn't think you can.
No.
Wait, so we get one by in each district?
Apparently.
All right, so moving on to item F.
Well, and you're talking about codifying E as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Absolutely.
That was a
Because
big
it's
deal.
gonna change depending on who's in charge.
I
And we don't
couldn't-
want that to happen.
I couldn't agree more. We're in.
Thanks, Elvie.
So item F, if a member of a public submits a written request to the municipal clerk, this is something that can start at any point. I think maybe we can work on making this information available to the public so that the public knows, that anybody can request a sign-up list.
And that needs to be codified, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, also.
Item G, the task force recommends that the municipal clerk and the assembly explore ways for citizens to sign up electronically. We had a lot of robust conversations about this as a task force, and there was different thoughts on the task force regarding this. I think that it is I have very strong opinions about this. We can look into this, we can look into it as part of, a meeting management software, but I think that there's a lot of conversations that should be part of this. Not everybody has access all the time to internet. Does it give people an unfair advantage with access to internet? We've just always traditionally had the process of having people queue up at the meetings, but,
Ms. Jennifer, I'm sorry.
This is kind of an interesting, because in charter, we talk about public hearing and a public hearing process. And that involves coming into the chamber and being part of a public hearing process. So I think that's where I start having concerns about going into electronic, because I have no concerns about an electronic forum on public forum. We've talked many times about having some kind of, you click on to the item on the agenda and you have a public forum, a place for everybody to see what everybody's saying in public record. I have no problem with that. But the whole public hearing process is showing up at the chamber.
yeah.
And so that's where I see.
And just logistically, how do we confirm that these are people? How do we?
That's all part of showing up at the chamber.
Yeah, and that's my concern with the electronic. And how do you not have like a slew of people sign up to make it appear that all these people are going to come here? And then I think that there's a lot of challenges with it, but I think I'm open to
And
exploring.
as I
Well,
said,
we're
it's a
getting more
difference
people on the list now to speak.
It's a difference between public hearing and public record, and I think that's where I see it.
Carolyn?
Well, part of it came up because we had been asked, how can we let the assembly know that they can have a general idea of how many people are looking at showing up? So it was just trying to give you an option. As far as not letting one person sign up 50 people, it would have to be a login process to where you would basically have an account with the municipal clerk's office on the website, with your address, physical address, voter ID, something that actually shows you are who you are. So you can't just arbitrarily go in and sign somebody up without having literally a password login, or ID login, etc. So that would kind of eliminate part of the problem, and somebody would actually have to physically really work to sign them up. So it was up to you, but it was a suggestion we'd had because people had asked for it, so.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Dick.
Go ahead, Bob. I'm sorry.
Well, no, I mean, this is one of those things that I felt was important to look at, because as we evolve, and one of the things people said, I'm not willing to go down and sit for 5 hours and find out I'm not gonna get to testify. And I think maybe we miss out on some of that, and I'd like to see us start exploring these arenas. Maybe we're not ready for it right now, but wouldn't it be nice to create a system where people can do it either electronically or in person? And as things evolve, we've all seen that. When was the last time we paid a nickel for anything on an air flight?
On
It's
his
going
thing, and then
electronic.
I'll get to tell.
So-
We've been waiting
So,
patiently.
are you talking about having public access to be part of public records so that they would log in and be part of the public record, but maybe not physically be there at the hearing? Or are you saying just the public getting onto the list? Because one of the things I tell folks when they're wondering about when we're going to be getting to whatever item is, I suggest that they go and look at the streaming video. And because that's a great way of kind of gauging
But even on the streaming video, you don't know what's going on unless you listen for a while because there's no ticker tape at the bottom that says what's actually happening.
So that might be
To answer
another,
your question, I'm talking about both. I think that the creating the electronic public record is wonderful, accessible on a broad scope, as well as moving ourselves towards, I'd like to be able to go in and sign up electronically and check the list and find out I'm number 27 or I'm number 257 and it would be a nice communicator to the assembly, say, oh my God, we've got 700 people signed up for this. And you know, you're gonna have to balance the system. I sat on the board, I've sat on enough boards to know that, you know, you can get inundated, but there's ways to deal with that. And again, it's part of being more inclusive and creating a process that makes it more predictable and easier for people to come and know when they're gonna testify within a range. So,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me first address something you said about, you know, going and looking at the meeting online and you don't know where you are. And you may or may not know this, but if you click on the actual agenda item, it takes you to that part of the meeting, okay? And then, the good news on this signing up electronically is that the comment is explore ways. So, and that's what we're gonna do, we're gonna explore ways. I'm real adamant about seeing the effects of the Citizens Task Force work happen, and probably as quickly as possible, at least some of it, because I don't want to be involved with another committee and task force and then nothing happens. So my suggestion is, especially since we only have 20 minutes left, I know we're going to have another meeting, Mr. Chairman, but I would really like to go over a couple of things that I mentioned that should be codified to see if everybody agrees.
Let me see
So-
what Amanda has and I'll
Right.
get yours.
Okay.
One thing I want to see that kiosk be able to do is have a typewriter. You enter your first name and your last name. That cues up who's going to be speaking. That's why we would have the people right there to do it.
Like
Just to
the
make
credit
part of the
union.
kiosk.
Like Denali Credit Union?
Denali Credit Union's a good example. You go in there, you put your first name, your last name, you're called up in the rotation, you sign into it. Amanda?
I can let LV present what she would like to codify.
I would be very interested.
Go ahead,
Thank you,
Elliot.
at least at this point, you know, because we are gonna have another meeting, okay?
Absolutely.
And Mr. Chairman, I'd like to
That's
pass.
fine, then we go for it.
Okay, the first thing that needs to be codified
Page
is
and letter.
page 4, 3 public hearings, item C, because the 3 minute is already in the code, and we need to put the 5 minutes for community council. That needs to be codified. Does anybody object to that, including you, Mr.
Absolutely
Wheeler?
not.
LB, would you get with the clerk to codify it?
Well, actually, what we're gonna have to do is get our attorney to draft
I
the
know,
code,
get
right?
with Julia, just
Okay.
on things you want to see codified.
Okay, and then I think, number E needs to be codified, because if it isn't, it's gonna change with who's ever in charge. You know, and I think number F needs to be codified, for the same reason I just stated. Number H needs to be codified. And number J needs to be codified. And I welcome comments because if folks disagree, I'd like to hear about it and why on any of these. Because I am gonna get with our attorney, but I'm thinking that maybe we should get with our attorney when we're done with this whole thing and just give her a set of things that need to be codified at first.
As you have things,
Give it
as
to
you
her
want to see
next
codified,
time.
give her to her now, she can start to work
Okay,
on it.
okay.
Because she's got vacations in and out of town.
Got
Yes,
you.
Dennis?
Sorry, LD invited to comment, so, like, I think I've said this before in other meetings, but anytime you make the determination that you're gonna hear everybody, keep in mind that you're gonna have to give yourself some sort of release valve when you run up against approving the budget before January 1, or getting things on the ballot.
You're talking about number J?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so obviously, if you don't have the budget approved, we've talked about what do you do with the way the charter is currently. It's been our opinion, if you don't have the budget, you have a shutdown scenario. On the election side, if you have school bonds or other propositions that you really want to get, you're gonna have to make sure you have an outlet to get those done in the timeframes that are currently in code for
Gotcha.
elections.
So that makes sense not to codify that, but to just make it policy.
Well, I'm not saying you can't codify it, I'm just saying that you should have some kind of release
Needs to
valve.
be an escape valve.
Oh,
I don't know
case.
how to phrase it at this point. but-
Okay.
Because obviously,
Oh, okay.
if it's in the summer and it's not something that has a critical deadline, you can go all summer if you want,
And we have.
and you have.
Gotcha.
You have
But
more
if it's-
meetings.
But if it's something
We've had-
specifically
did that
related
too.
to, you know.
We used to meet every week.
Yeah, so,
And there's nothing that says you can only meet from 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock
Right.
to
I appreciate
11:59.
your
You could start at noon and go to 11:59 if you
Right.
wanted to.
but even with all those possibilities, there may be some circumstances that for
Right.
whatever reason, here you are, it's the last day to approve something, and you've got 10 more people left.
Right,
What are you gonna do?
right.
The clerk's office has been working on having the Wilda Marston available or a TV in the lobby. The recent past couple meetings have been widely attended, and we have made arrangements before the meetings, so we are working on.
We're gonna have to add
procedurally-
money into the agenda to put a TV on the entryway.
Well, we've just been moving that TV from the conference room out.
Because widescreen TVs are cheap right now.
Yeah.
It would be nice to put a 60-inch there so that people can watch what's going on. Because I would see them come in, they do one of these to see where we're at,
Talking about in the theater?
No, outside in the lobby.
outside the lobby.
Yeah, because something like this, that's out of the way, you know, this projector for,
Yeah.
we use the summer setup upstairs for webinars all the time, and it's nothing
We need to work with the
TV.
library too, because they're gonna
Just
have
have
some
something that
changes
hangs from the
going
ceiling,
on.
you have a screen that you can control.
That's a good one.
Looks great.
So then you're okay with that? Maybe you can work with Julia on some, you know,
Yeah.
language or something. Yeah.
Yes,
I
Carolyn?
just want to throw this out real quick, that if number 4 on our principles is followed, then for the most part, that should eliminate a lot of the extended public testimony that you look at, because it's only happened a few times. And a lot of the reasons it's happened is because number 4 didn't happen, especially
Where's
with
number 4 at?
on
Page
page
5, this
2.
one.
Oh,
two
page
first.
3. Oh,
Page
substitute
3.
version. We didn't get to
Yes,
substitute version
page
yet. Okay, but
Go ahead, Ellie.
I just wanna, Jennifer had her hand, I just
Jennifer,
wanna
I'm
make sure
sorry.
everybody agrees with,
Oh,
or doesn't
absolutely.
agree
Yes,
with, you know,
absolutely.
with my suggestions.
Do it.
Jennifer, you okay?
Yeah, I do hear what Dennis is saying.
Right, and hopefully him and Julia can work on that.
Just an escape valve of some
And the thing
kind.
about it is, you know, I mean, once we have a draft, we're gonna get together and look at Julia's draft on things that need to be codified, just to get it
Dare
right. But
say
I wanna
work
see us,
sessions.
you know, move along and get something on the books. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anything else?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Amanda? Back to you, Amanda.
I'll take a few more minutes to go through this stuff then. So I'm gonna jump back to where I left off. Item I, public hearings, the title of the ordinance being heard or discussed should appear on the bottom of the TV screen. I think this is a great idea. I am not sure how we could begin to implement it. We do have closed captioning that we already list on the bottom of the screen, but we can maybe work on having both available. I do think it's a really good idea. I can, talk to the John Crab who does the recordings, and we might also need to talk to the meeting management software that we use to see if that is something that we can tie into that.
That would be good if you could do that.
I have a crazy low tech idea for it, I'll tell you.
Marlis?
No,
Join us.
I can only stay a few minutes.
We're almost done.
Hello, ma'am.
Well, I timed that perfectly,
You did.
didn't I?
Can I comment?
If first, artist, do you have anything to tell us?
Hello,
Want to talk to us?
it's good to see you working. How are you finding it?
We're finding this very useful. And
Good.
we've got a lot of it that's being implemented now,
Uh-huh.
and we're gonna codify a lot of it,
Oh,
so it can't change.
great. I really appreciate your response and
Thanks
thank
for
you.
your time. We wanted to see this, because we should never get in the mess we were with 37 again.
Well, you sent it. I mean, you recognized that and did something, and that's to your credit. Oh,
Ellie?
If I can, Mr. Chair, I just want to make one comment. And I'm not a webmaster by no means, but they already have, you know, if an assembly member, when an assembly member's talking, they have their name up there. So put in the ordinance number, shouldn't be a big issue.
So, and it's my understanding that the names are preloaded so that they are able to
okay.
pull that up, but
Oh, I
then
see.
having the whole agenda with
Oh.
all the items, and then
Is-
having
okay.
someone,
I didn't know that.
and so, and it's not on our end that we upload those names,
Oh,
it's the
okay.
gentleman Mr.
Crab,
Crab.
John, yeah. No, it's not the clerk's responsibility, no, John, yeah.
I know, but I'm not sure how we would be able to upload all that additional information.
Right.
I think it's
It's
a nice
something we
idea,
need to
it's something we can
explore.
explore,
Yeah.
but it's not something that's happening anytime.
Not tomorrow,
soon.
yeah, we know, thanks, man.
So just continuing on, item J, I just spoke about, the clerk's office has been working to arrange this when we have the feeling that it's gonna be a big one. We have been doing that. Item K, prior to closing public hearing, the chair should always ask if anyone else would like to testify, and it's my understanding that the chair does that, the concern only with the.
Every chair I know, ever seen asks that as the
Yeah.
last question.
Yeah. There was robust conversations regarding substitute versions. When a substitute or S version of an ordinance is introduced, it should be accompanied by a written description of what has changed from the original version, and a description should be posted on the municipal website. I do not know how to, I'm not sure how to address this, because,
Nobody's got to comment
Thank
on
you,
that,
thank
imagine.
you, Chairman.
Nobody?
One of the issues that we have now that has changed from prior practice is a memorandum of intent. And we used to have a memorandum of intent with every single ordinance and with every resolution. You know, and it's extra work, but that really helps the public process. And that would certainly help with, you know, substitute documents, the memorandum of intent. Because it would outline what's changed. And as much as I hate to have to codify something like that, maybe we really need to so that it doesn't change based on who's in charge. So that's another area where we probably need to codify it. Like the summary of economic effects is codified, thanks to John Wood.
But it's never followed.
so item
We need
B.
to change that.
Item B is, S versions should be available. The clerk's office has been working on making all documents available in the lobby. And we also have provided signs to let the public know that if it's not there, they can ask the minutes clerk, and we will happy to, have that for them. Item C is the same as the conversation I had regarding the title of the ordinance, should appear on the bottom of the screen. It is a big conversation, and I'm not sure how we would address that with the system that we use, but we can continue to explore that item. Item D, the task force recommends that if changes are substantial, that it significantly change the original proposal through substitution or amendment, the new version should be evaluated to determine if it should be treated as a new ordinance or a public hearing process. This is based on Juneau City and Borough. They have an ordinance that states that if there is substantial changes to the document, it goes through again. We had a lot of conversations about this as a task force. I talked to the clerks in Juneau. I asked how it's determined. They said they just err on the side of if it seems different, then they run it through again. So
So Juno has this codified? Good, because I got codified next to my notes.
Bob?
And this was particularly important to a lot of both testifiers and people within the committee and there was no accusations of it actually occurring, but we structured this process to make sure public has its input, and then something could be changed so dramatically that nobody would recognize it, and in fact, it bypasses the
Everything
real
other than the
intent.
title's changed? Everything other than the title?
Exactly, exactly. And it was very meaningful to a lot of people to ensure that this type of thing happens. So I just felt it was
Dennis?
very important.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On S version, a couple of things. One, a lot of S versions are born out of what comes out of the Friday work sessions. So just keep that in mind. We often don't have a lot of big window of time to not only create them, but create a lot of backup for them. We typically rely on the S version itself to explain the change. If you're deleting a word, adding a word. So I understand what Elby's saying about intent, but we gotta keep that in mind. Then two, on the idea behind that new public hearing, what we know is that we have a Supreme Court case, Mr. DiNardo pursued, where he argued he wanted to testify on S versions, and the court hinted that there is this notion of if there's a substantial change, perhaps it needs a new hearing. That's probably why Juneau adopted the ordinance that they did. What the court hinted at without actually deciding was what you can do is you can limit that second bite to only the things that are changed. Because otherwise, if you don't, when you bring back the S version, you also open the door for everybody who wants to talk about everything in the original ordinance, even though the S version itself doesn't necessarily address all of those issues that people want to bring up. So you can put yourself in this circle of hearing all the same people say all the same stuff again. So if you're looking at adding and making a decision about letting people testify again, you probably ought to consider limiting it to only those things that are different in the S version, so that you don't go through 4 hours of the same stuff all over again.
Jennifer?
And that was what I was gonna bring up. The other part of an S version lots of times comes out as a result of the public hearing. And so, you know, you could also get into that thank you thing, where you've addressed the issues that came up in public hearing, and then everybody comes back and says thank you, which is, I mean, it's just the same, you know, it's so, and it's similar to our public, at the end of the meeting, you know, whether you can have people come back. and-
Item 37?
Yes.
17, sorry. I know what you mean.
So-
Before we leave this, a couple of quick things. Maybe the Friday meeting needs to be on Wednesday. You know what I'm saying? It is, we create these schedules, and when we meet and have these issues discussed, it's too close to the assembly meeting, then maybe we need to look at backing the meeting up in order to more support the public's opportunity to look at these things. And the other piece is, I used to negotiate labor contracts. One small phrase in an entire ordinance can dramatically change the entire ordinance. And so before we start limiting and say, we just changed this one sentence, if you have anything to say about the one sentence that's it, I just think we need to be cautious about
Actually,
that.
Jennifer?
Carlos, remember when Frank Ferguson changed a couple prepositions in a couple of bills that completely changed the intent of studying highways in interior as opposed into
I miss
interior.
Frank.
Elvie?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That's cute.
Not that I'm boasting, but I've been around for 30 years in municipal government. I've seen a lot. And we used to meet every Tuesday, and every Tuesday morning, we'd have work sessions all day, then we'd go to the assembly meeting. Okay, and that's why I got changed to Fridays. But that's one of the reasons why I'm adamantly, not suggesting, but saying, we really need to do a memorandum of intent with every single ordinance. And probably resolution 2, because it's just easier for the public to not read 67 pages, you know, and just, you know, especially when there is, I mean, we need to do it for every ordinance, okay? But especially when there's a substitute version. I think that would be really, really helpful to our constituents and citizens in this community. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We're just about done. We've got about 4 minutes left. Our next meeting is going to be on the 12th of November at 1 o'clock, if you set that up.
December.
12th of December, 1 o'clock. If you'd set that up, Amanda, we'd appreciate it. We'd like to see what you've been able to accomplish in the clerk's office, and then we
And I
should be
put
able
it
to
in here
talk.
already.
What?
It's already in here.
And she already put it, so it's going to happen.
Okay. Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
Can we meet for 2 hours, just so we can get a lot of work done?
She'll make it happen. We can do that.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
And the
You know,
clerk's office
this
will
is-
try and send out information before the meeting too, so that you can
Cool.
have a sense of where we're at.
Well, thank you all for being here.
Thank
On
you.
behalf of the task force, thank you guys. Really appreciate you taking this. Absolutely.